genocide that happened in Rwanda, I will really talk about my personal experience. Because if I talk about the overview of the genocide and my personal experience, I may need more than 10 minutes. So, as she said, my name is Pascal Kenyemara, and I live here in Ottawa, and I'm president of Humura Association. It's an organization founded in 2001, made mainly by the survivors of the Tutsi Genocide in Rwanda. So in 1994, as you all know, that's when the genocide started. It was April 7. The then president of the country, Habyarimana, was shot down. And but just a little bit before that, 4 years before, the Tutsi entered the country from Uganda and has formed a rebel group to fight the then government Hutu, who was discriminating against the Tutsis. And in 1994, the tension was really high in the country. And when the then president of the country, Habyarimana, plane was shut down, the then Hutu administration accused the Tutsi rebels to kill the president, who was a Hutu, and to revenge against the king of the president, they just killed every Tutsi that was in the country. And for myself, I was 15 years old. I was living in the eastern of the country, close to Congo, in a city called Bukavu. And we had a normal life. My mom and my dad were teachers in high school, living in the rural area. So we just lived a normal life. We go to school. My mom and dad were high school teachers, and we go to school Monday to Friday, and weekend we go to church like anybody else. But when in 1990, when the Tutsi started the war from Uganda to enter Rwanda, I can remember I was in primary school, and a military jeep came to school, taking my dad to school. We had some information that you may have a gun at your home place. But the military jeep came to a place, but they knew my dad didn't have a gun, but they just want to take him for interrogation or maybe to torture. And for some reason, take my dad away. So he gave them some money, so they left my dad in touch and stay home. And from there, the situation started to change because it brought so much attention to our family. That incident that my dad had to change the script for his teaching. Because the teacher are 10 minutes from my home, so they took him 5 minutes away. Because we didn't have a car, so you have to walk to go to another school. He wanted to teach for another school. And everything is kind of stayed quiet a little bit, and then there are some negotiations between the government and the rebel group. And everything started kind of really calming down. And that's when that incident in 1994, April 7 happened. And you can imagine our parents, because I was 15, I can say I was not too young, but not too adult as well, to evaluate the situation. And at that time, I was in boarding school, so I was not at home. I was, I think, in the secondary school. I was in boarding school, and I actually had to go home on Friday. And the president bench was shut down on Tuesday, and we didn't go home because all the parents, all the kids at school, some Tutsis and the other Hutus. The Hutus, because they were not afraid of being killed, they went home. And suddenly, at the end, we started school as only the Tutsis same school. And we got lucky because we had the headmaster of the school. He was a Hutu, but a really nice guy. He was like, you guys, you can stay here at school. You don't have, because you have nowhere to go. Probably your family will probably killed. So stay here in the school. We started school, and I didn't know what happened to my family. It's just in the middle of May, I get a letter from my mom She was somewhere, she took a refugee at a church nearby. And for some reason, she was able to get it to me when I was in school. And then she was like, Pascal, things went bad. You were not at home. So this is the letter. I'm going to list the names of the people on this small paper. Anybody you don't see on this paper, he was killed. And I was like, because being in school, we're kind of cut off of the situation outside the school. And my mom listed just herself and my three sisters. And I was like, so that means everybody who didn't list on this paper was killed. And I didn't believe it. And I kind of stayed in denial. But somewhere in end of May, it started April 7, and at the end of May, the governor of that area where my school was, he had an evil plan. He was like, we killed the Tutsis in this area, but let's pretend like we're not killing people anymore. So they like, okay, anybody who's hiding a Tutsi in his home, he can bring them to this camp. There was a refugee camp called Nyarushishi, and they kind of started bringing the survivors in that area. And we went to in that plan. So we went to that refugee camp, and that's why I went. I found my mom and my three sisters. They kind of in a small, how do you call this? Yeah, like small shelters. Yeah, tents. Yeah, tents. Yeah. And we stay in I found them there. And that's what I then discovered what happened. Really, really. Up to then, I couldn't even believe because my two brothers were killed. My dad also a kid. My 5 uncles, my 11 cousins, my 4 aunties. And after all that, I was one of the lucky ones because I still have my mom and my 3 sisters. I have some cousins who stayed just alone, one person. That means they killed all dads, all the siblings, and they stayed just by themselves. So we stayed in that camp until the end of June. And that's when the French military, authorized by UN, came to protect the refugee. And the day they came, something really magical happened because they heard that the French soldiers were coming to our refugee because they knew if the French soldiers came to the refugee, nobody will be killed again. So they started that evil plan of killing all the Tutsis that were in that camp. We're like 8,500 people in that camp. And the chief of the militias, that morning, he was coming to organize the killing in that whole province. Like he called every killer to come to kill the people in that refugee camp. And his car broke down. And when the car broke down, in the afternoon, that's when the French soldiers got to our refugee. And from that day, the French didn't leave, so they stayed in that camp, and then we were safe from that day. So the French soldiers stayed there, and then they were repressed by Ethiopians, UN soldiers who repressed the French. And then the RPF was fighting the genocide government, was able to defeat the government. And we left that area and then we came to Kigali after the genocide. That was probably in August of that year, 1994. So we came to Kigali and then we started looking for some survivors in our family. So that's when we heard about what happened to the extended family of so many people that died. And we started to build our own lives and went back to school. My mom was, Mama survived. She was able to find a teaching job in Kigali, in the capital of Kigali. She went back to school. And then we got lucky with our aunt who was working at the USA embassy. She was able to get us some visa to come to stay. And then we crossed here, we made a refugee claim to Canada. And since 1998, my mom stays in Montreal. And my 3 sisters also in Montreal. And I went to school in Montreal. operator, and now I work for the federal government as an immigration officer. And I think that's what I can share about my I try to go fast with everything in the time I was given. But I know that everybody here, you have your own story to share. And I just remember what they said in the beginning. There's no competition in suffering. Your suffering is knowledgeable that what happened. Even if no that many people know what happened to you, I know some people, they keep talking about Rwanda. And I know there's a lot of communities here. I was reading a small paper, I think it's this paper, but I saw that 600 Tigrayans have been killed in a recent conflict. 600,000 people. You know? Yeah, and
Actually more.
exactly, and that shows me that what happened in Rwanda. First, what happened to Jewish people in 1948? We shouldn't have any other genocide, but unfortunately, these evil things keep happening. So I don't want to monopolize.
Thank you.
But thank you for paying attention.
Thank you.